Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is Very Useful Engine, and today I'm going to give you a post commentary on a pretty interesting survival run I had maybe like a week ago. Now, first up, I just want to say sorry for not posting anything lately. I've been really busy with finishing the wrestling season and with school in general, so I haven't really had time for editing. I have been working on a tier list on the side for melee weapons, and then they announced 2.3, so I'm going to push that back for a while and just work on this post commentary. So as soon as 2.3 drops, I'm going to be doing some tier lists. But yeah, other than that, here's this run. The whole idea of it was basically fake tactics. So tactics, weapons, and a very tactics-esque playstyle, but with a survival build, so you have a bit more HP to work with. So the majority of this build was a dual bind between the Boy's Axe and the Ice Bow. I switched to Ice Shards right near the very end, right before Hand of the King. And then I switched to a very spoiler-heavy weapon after that. If you know why my screen was glitching at the very start, then you know what I'm talking about, because this was actually my second time beating 5BC on this specific save file. So yeah, in this first tube, I found the Giant Killer and the Boy's Axe. I'm just using the Boy's Axe right now since Giant Killer does virtually nothing in biomes. And I really don't know why I took it in retrospect, because it had both Giant Killer and Vampirism, which aren't going to help at all in the first biome. But it really wasn't a big deal since I could just use the Boy's Axe to kill everything for the most part. Then pretty early on I found this weapon shop, and on the first go around I was lucky enough to find this Ice Bow, and this is a build I've been wanting to try for a while. So I figured I would definitely just pick up the Ice Bow and start dual binding them. If you want a guide on dual binding, if I remember, I'll link it in the card above. If not, it's the first video I ever made, so you can go on my channel and find that. I don't have too many right now. But anyways, this combo is actually doing really well, especially because the Ice Bow I had has both bleeding and it freezes nearby enemies. So it's actually working on multiple enemies really well despite neither of them piercing. And I'm kind of going through freezing enemies, ripping out the Boy's Axe for damage. And yeah, they're really not able to do anything between being rooted, frozen, and kind of like stunned a little bit when you pull the Boy's Axe out. So it's actually a really good build. I was kind of surprised because I thought it would be lacking in damage, but the Boy's Axe does a surprising amount on its own. And it didn't do great against bosses, but towards the end, since Ice Bow doesn't work against late game bosses pretty much at all, I switched off to Ice Shards like I mentioned. I was kind of looking for Ice Shards the entire time but didn't find them. So I kind of just stuck with the Ice Bow till the very end. And here you can see I was able to kill 3 elites at one time just by freezing them and rooting them, so yeah, it's a pretty strong build. You'd be surprised at the fact that enemies really just can't react to you being there at all. So in the in-between levels, I picked Heart of Ice as my first mutation. The reason for this is because I wanted to just kind of be able to spam my skills and do some damage apart from just the Ice Bow and the Boy's Axe. But if I'm being honest, I'm not even sure it was working. Which sounds weird because it should be for sure, but you're gonna see that even though I'm rooting and freezing enemies, I just wasn't getting very much cooldown reduction at all, and I don't know why. But yeah, it was kind of inexplicable, but I just wasn't really getting any cooldown reduction. I don't know. So in the Arboretum, I found this ice grenade on the ground, and to be honest with you, I don't know why I took it. I just saw that it was survival scaling and thought it would be better than magnetic grenade, but I had the victims freeze nearby enemies affix on my Ice Bow, so I really didn't need the ice grenade at all. It was just sitting in my build not really doing anything, and I definitely would have been better off with the magnetic grenade. So that was a mistake on my part. Especially in these first like 2 or 3 areas, you don't need everything to scale with your build, and ice grenade was just kind of redundant since I'm already freezing stuff, so I shouldn't have done that, but it's fine. And you can already see how the Boy's Axe is just doing like at least half of everything's health each time I rip it out. And then I'm just freezing enemies with the Ice Bow, giving them a bleed dot, and I can even hurt them with the flamethrower turret if I really need to. So this build is going pretty well. With all the freezing and rooting it has, I can even use it at long range and nothing can really contest me at all, so I was kind of surprised. I kind of thought of this build in my head thinking it might not work, but I might as well try it, and then once I actually got it in a normal mode run, it was working super well for me. So then I opened the skill shop, I found not the ice grenade, sorry, the death orb, and I took that because I wanted skills that would do some damage for me, and death orb is definitely very good for that purpose. And I kind of just rerolled the shop again and again for no reason, because I didn't want to buy another skill. I was pretty good with the ice grenade and the death orb. So I found another shop and there was nothing really in it. So now onto the left side. I don't know why I always do the right side first, I just kind of do. And you can see the strengths of this build. I'm just going enemy by enemy, freezing them, and they can't really do anything about it. It also works at really long ranges. Mushroom Boy would have actually been good, come to think of it, because he can knock enemies away from you. And you could definitely use that to your advantage, but I didn't use Mushroom Boy on this run because the entire time I was trying to find some ice shards to replace the ice bow, which would have been a much more short range build, and Mushroom Boy wouldn't have been as good in that situation. But if you want to stick with this build with the ice bow instead of the ice shards, then Mushroom Boy could be a very, very good skill to use. So heading into Prison Depths, I picked Armadillo Pack because it's an amazing mutation. More on that on my mutations tier list coming out after 2.3. Anyways, first things first, gotta clear the curse. I fired my weapon at nothing there because there can sometimes be invisible enemies on that hallway, and I just wanted to freeze them before they got the chance to see me. And I also took Scarecrow Sickles right at the end. It might have been in the 60 door, it might have been in one of the shops, I'm not sure. But Scarecrow Sickles, just like Death Orb, does really good damage. So adding that on top of all the rooting and freezing in my build, like I said before, is just going to be really good. And the shield I have in the backpack is the Blood Shield because that's really just the best thing I found, but the bleeding on top of the bleeding from the Ice Bow could be pretty good. So yeah, being cursed with this build, no big deal. One more enemy to go. And I'm just going to find them. Oh, they're spawning up here. It's a little archer. Kill him. Move on. So this right here is why Armadillo Pack is super helpful to have for the Prison Depths, because of these hammer enemies, and if they spawn their little bombs, you can just go ahead and roll right through them and clear every single one of them. Unfortunately, I do run into some issues with Prison Depths, and it's nothing to do with me or anything, but as you can probably tell, I'm lagging pretty bad right now, and that's not the actual footage. That's just my computer being laggy and slow. I don't know why, but I'm not really able to tell what's going on half the time because of lag, and I'm just getting really choppy frames. I don't know what was happening, but I'm just lagging in and out constantly, so I had to restart after Prison Depths, but before that I found a challenge rift, and for whatever reason I tried to clear it out while I was lagging. Probably not the smartest move, but you're about to see that right here. Also real quick, I swapped out for a crusher. So here I open up the challenge rift. I just grab my scroll quickly. I'm going to play this at 200% speed. So even on double speed you can kind of tell how I'm just freezing midair because of lag, getting really choppy frames even though there's not a single enemy nearby. I'm just getting hit in a challenge rift and there's nothing I can really do about it because it's not on me, it's on my computer, unfortunately. So I don't let it ruin my confidence or anything. I just drink a health pot, restart my computer, wait a little bit, and then restart the game, and I made the lag go away, so it wasn't a big deal. I just had to drink a health pot and spend the money on a replacement later. So I picked Kill Rhythm just to kind of maximize my DPS as much as possible because I'm dual binding, which means I'll always be switching between my two weapons. And you can see here how even the Giant Ticks and the Morass of the Banished just really can't do anything against this. Also, if you stand in one place with the Scarecrow Sickles, then they will just float around you freely and never return back to you. So that's one way where if you have something like a Crusher, perhaps, then you can just stand right there next to an enemy while your Scarecrow Sickles just float around doing tons of damage and they'll never actually go back to you. You can also do that same kind of thing with a shield and just sit there parrying as they fly around you. So I don't know if I've mentioned this in a video before, but Morass of the Banished is actually my favorite biome in the entire game. And the reason why I love it so much is just because it's overcrowded with enemies and walls for you to climb on. So it's just kind of mass carnage, just going around killing everything. Using the walls to escape, using the spider rune, dodging at the perfect moment to avoid the blowgunners. It's just really, really fun to go through super high speed and just kill everything in your path. The ticks also provide a pretty fun and interesting challenge, if you ask me. So I'm now committed to this whole idea of like fake tactics, but I'm trying to find the ice shards because that's what I really want to add to my build, and unfortunately, I just keep looking for the ice shards and I'm never really able to find them. Luckily I did manage to find them and a boy's axe that spreads oil in the High Peak Castle right before Hand of the King, so that was pretty good. So I'll just play a little bit of this right here before I go and clear out the curse. And you can kind of see what I mentioned before about how you're just climbing up walls, dodging blowgunners with perfect timing, and going on and killing a bunch of enemies at once, and it's just a really fun biome overall. I really think this plus Dilapidated Arboretum are two of my favorite biomes, and the Bad Seed DLC has some great weapons as well, so if you don't have the Bad Seed DLC and you have $5 to spare, you like this game, then I think it's really worth the investment. Now here's where I pick up the curse, and one thing you should definitely look to do if you're cursed in the Morass of the Banished is to go down. The reason for that is that you don't want blowgunners to be able to shoot on you, because blowgunners, if they're above you or on the same level as you, they will shoot you, but if they're below you and they notice you, they'll jump up to either your level or one above you, so going down makes it much easier to kill the blowgunners. And those are your biggest threats when you're cursed for sure, so yeah, that's something you should definitely look out for, because notice right there, the blowgunner was below me, but it jumped up, and if I had gone up, then there would be blowgunners above me shooting on me while I was fighting different enemies. So going down while you're cursed definitely makes it a lot easier to clear.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Right here kind of demonstrates how the Scarecrow sickles were adding a lot of damage onto my build, because on that first tick I melted it no problem with the sickles, but on the second one, even though I had 2 more scrolls, it took me a lot longer to kill it just because I didn't have the sickles up. I was just relying on my crusher and my 2 weapons, and that was doing actually significantly less damage, as you could probably tell.
It sound right, boys.
Now, on to fight Momatic, and I did lose pretty badly in this fight, but it's not the build's fault, it's my fault, because any build really that has a Crusher and Scarecrow sickles isn't going to be bad against bosses. I was kind of just spamming into her, doing some pretty good damage even without the sickles up, but unfortunately later on in the fight I'm going to make some pretty big mistakes. So I got her down to the first phase, sat in the corner waiting to roll through the little tentacles popping up. Unfortunately, that one wasn't on me. There's nothing you can really do. Sometimes they just pop up at the same time, same place, and if you don't have a shield, then you can't do anything about it. You can parry them if you do have a shield, but right here, the Crusher and the Boy's Axe are just stunning her out of her attacks, and that time I actually don't get them both spawning up at the same time, so I will be able to dodge the second one. And like I mentioned earlier, when you stand in one place, the sickles don't ever come back to you. Right there while I was waiting to dodge, you saw they just waited forever, but right there I rolled way too early on the first tentacle, so I got hit there, or I guess it's a claw since she drops the scythe claws. Anyways, that one I didn't make the same mistake, unfortunately. She's gonna go over to the other side. I did fine, but I thought I would be able to hang in the air a little bit better, and then I made the same mistake again of rolling too early. So I just go over there, drink a health pot to be safe. Yeah. A couple of pretty minor hits, but the 2 big ones were just me messing up on the scythe downward attack. And I messed up for a 3rd time there, but luckily I killed her before she was able to hit me, so pretty bad fight on my part, but you could tell I was actually doing really good damage, considering I was in a boss fight with only an ice bow and a Boy's Axe, so not the build's fault, my fault. If you go to Momatic with this, you'll probably do a lot better than I did. Now in Graveyard, everything was actually going really well, because I found some food. I was just using my skills to take care of enemies. And you could see the strength of this build, like I've probably said a lot at this point. really just going through freezing and rooting, you're able to play it like a tactics build but still have some HP and not get absolutely murked if you get hit. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. I just bait out the shot from that Inquisitor totally on purpose. I'm just really smart. That's how it works. Don't even question it. And yeah, the sickles, as you can see, are just flying around me doing some crits. Really helpful to have in a build. I think they're a really good skill, actually. Because if you can figure out how to get them to just fly around you like that, then they end up doing a lot of damage. I tried to bait up this elite using my head, but unfortunately he spawned the crystals, so I just use Acrobatipack to clear out the grenade and then weave my way barely through those spikes. That was actually pretty reckless on my part. I don't know why I did that, but yeah. And in this key room there's always going to be this little secret here. In case you ever see it, just get a quick item and recycle it. Add to your money. It's nice. I'm extremely good. So here I'm cursed once again, but as I said before, it's really not a big deal. First off, I get that free kill on the archer. I also made sure to clear an area ahead before I took the curse, and I'm just spamming down this long hallway. It doesn't even matter if enemies are invisible because I don't need to see them to just freeze them and kill them after that. So yeah, I just make my way up here, pop my skill, super easy curse clear. And as they start doing crits, they even wipe out another entire room of enemies, which is why I think the Scarecrow sickles are just really good.
If you ain't got no money, then I mean, I don't know. You still need to learn how to save money because you're gonna have money.
So onto the Sepulcher. I did switch out my Scarecrow sickles for a Giant Whistle right after the end of Graveyard. So here I just pick up the curse, I see some ice armor, and I take it temporarily just because if I do get hit on this curse and I have ice armor activated, it will actually pop the ice armor instead of just one-shotting me. So that's why ice armor when you're about to clear a curse is actually super useful. So I once again made sure there was no spike traps on my path to clear out this curse. That's why I didn't just take it immediately and I took it into this room right here. Barely avoided the failed experiment actually, but I had the ice armor on so it wouldn't have been a big deal if I got hit. And I went down here so that I could just have them all teleport towards me. Waited for the bombs to explode. One more teleports right in, so I just spam him with attacks. That's how you pretty much use this build. Only one enemy left to go. I see these two guys over here, so I just pop my ice armor to be sure, and I lift the curse. Apart from that, nothing really happens in Sepulcher. So I want to go fight the Timekeeper. I didn't go to the Giant just because the Crusher isn't very good against him. And also the Giant Whistle is kind of awkward, just like making him punch himself with his third arm. I don't know, it breaks the continuity of the game. Anyways, time to fight the Timekeeper. My skills is what doing the most part of the damage. As you can see, my Crusher doing pretty well, and with the Giant's Whistle I can take out just a tad bit of health as well. So I get her down to her second phase fairly quickly. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get the no-hit, as you're going to see. And it comes when she does her like multiple shurikens attack. But however, I still do maintain some pretty good damage, but right there I get hit. So yeah, not much I could do about that. I was kind of right in her face and then she did multiple at once. So with no shield, I'm just forced to roll in and get hit by some later ones. But that was the only hit I took. Pretty good fight overall, so I'm just going to head into High Peak Castle. High Peak Castle is really just more of the same. You know the drill by now, just freezing enemies, rooting them, using my skills as much as possible because Heart of Ice is kinda semi-working, I think, I don't know. But as you can see, just the ability to passively parry as I roll with the Armadillo pack has been super helpful throughout this run. And I'm able to just take out enemies at long range, keep on going. None of them can really do anything to me. So that's just the really nice part of this build, is that it's super duper good in biomes. And you will struggle a bit against bosses. Timekeeper wasn't that bad at all. Mama Tick wasn't that bad, I just messed up. And Hand of the King with this particular build would have sucked. I know that much, but I didn't actually go to Hand of the King with this build like I said a couple times, I think by now. I actually managed to find some ice shards. And right here what I managed to find was the first dual stat scroll in this entire run that has survival on it. So now my scroll count is going from looking pretty bad to pretty average. So not bad. Also, I forgot to mention, in terms of synergy, I just have the bleeding on the ice bow and then bonus to bleeding on my boy's axe. So I am getting a bit of extra damage just through that. So right here in the shop is where I found the two weapons I used against Hand of the King, which was really lucky because Ice Bow does pretty much nothing against him, and these were also higher level. So I found the Boy's Axe, which spreads oil, and then the Ice Shard. So both of these I can just throw out, whereas the Ice Bow has the ammo. And one huge perk of it is that the Boy's Axe spreads oil, and the Ice Shards crit on oil, obviously. So if I just keep throwing them out, I'll do some critical hits, I'll keep ripping the Boy's Axe out, and that'll do much better than just simply having the Ice Bow and the Boy's Axe. So right here I reset my mutations, just because I didn't really need the Heart of Ice, it wasn't doing much to begin with. So I just swapped that out for Soldier's Resistance because for whatever reason in 2.1 they decrease the amount of health you have on survival, which I think was a really bad balance change, but they did add a lot of good options to survival, so it's not a big deal, and you can just take Soldier's Resistance late game. So that's what I ended up doing here, and there's what I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to spoil too much, since a lot of people who probably don't know about that are still watching the Hand of the King fight. Anyways, I just roll right behind him as he's doing the big attack, set down the Crusher, use the Giant's Whistle, and I get some pretty decent damage in on the start. Now, the reason I took Armadillo Pack is right there, because when he spawns in those bombs, you can just roll through them and clear every single one out. And right there, it looked like I rolled past it, but I guess he still managed to hit me with that hit right there. So unfortunate. It happens again. That one was for sure my fault. And then hits me again. I'm just not really reacting very quickly to these hits. He does another slam. I was up on the platform, so it didn't matter. Managed to roll through the attack that time, but I'm just going to go ahead and take a health bot since it's late in the game. Nothing wrong with doing it, and it's much better than risking dying. So right there, if you do get Hand of the King to land on top of an enemy as he's coming down, then he will take some damage. Unfortunately, I stood right up on that platform to avoid the bombs, and then he did a big slam attack, which like sucked me back to the ground as I was trying to jump away from it. So yeah, unfortunate there, but it's no big deal. And again, I'm just getting hit by stuff. Sucked down again by that attack. I didn't know it did that before, but if you're like just barely above it, it like sucks you down, so yeah. Up until this point, the run was going pretty well, but then it just devolved into chaos and Hand of the King. And I decided to take another health pot before I entered the 5BC area. And that was just to make sure that I didn't die in one hit. But anyways, I take the Simlance and 5BC spoilers from here on out, so leave if you don't want to know some 5BC story, but this is my second time beating 5BC, so I made sure to take control of the king using my homunculus rune. Quick story, I actually didn't know you were supposed to do that on my first ever save file, so I went in there after killing the king expecting the glitches to go away, and then I beat the game and they didn't, and I was confused. So here's this whole cutscene where you go back to your former body as the king. The lore of this game kinda makes no sense, because if you get into it, there's lots of plot holes and also like just weird, inexplicable things, I don't know. But I ended up taking the Symmetrical Lance because it has 300% damage, and it also gives me another scroll. I was thinking about not taking it just because I knew I wouldn't really have a way to deal with the librarians in the Astrolab, but I took it because, you know, I figured I might as well. It's like the Hand of the King's weapon, it's lore important, and it's gonna do some pretty good damage to the boss, even though it's Symmetrical Lance, so not too much to worry about build-wise. I'm still not gonna be able to kill librarians just because the Giant Whistle doesn't target them, but you can kind of cheese them by running into walls, so that's what I did for most of the Astrolab. And I also ended up buying some Scarecrow Sickles from the shop because I just desperately needed some way to take care of flying enemies. Because I was clearing out the biome pretty easily with all the damage I had. But the problem was, when it came to bombers and librarians, I just had no way to deal with them. But right there you saw, I kind of just let the Scarecrow Sickles fly at them from that point forward. And I was able to take care of them okay. It wasn't pretty, but I managed to scrape my way through this biome, and it wasn't all that bad. My luck also managed to redeem itself right at the very end, because throughout the entire game I didn't see a single dual stat with survival until High Peak Castle and Astrolab, where I found a couple. So now, because of the sim lance with the one scroll on it and then the 2 dual stats, instead of being at 30 I was at 33, so could be worse. Overall, not terrible. Now what is terrible is me, however, because as I was ascending up this tower I just kept getting hit by some strange stuff and then getting angry about it. I just kept getting small hit after small hit, and it was starting to really get on my nerves as I ended up taking some strange damage. Just getting hit by that, getting hit into the lasers, and at this point I was just yelling at myself and God and the world and this game, and it was not a fun time. And as I keep getting angrier and angrier, I just get hit by more weird, stupid stuff, and I'm not using my brain at all. Like right there, for instance. So I have to drink one more health pot and just keep climbing up. So that's what I mean by this run devolving into chaos after Hand of the King. Up until Hand of the King it was really easy. Everything was going my way and nothing wrong at all. I was just able to buy a couple health pots after I used them. But in Hand of the King, Astrolab, and maybe a little bit in Collector, I was just playing really, really badly, getting hit by lots of stuff. Fortunately, since the rest of the run had gone so well, it wasn't a big deal, but I was getting mad at this point. And I explained this in my other video, but you don't have to actually go fight these elite slammers. You can just use your head to bring them down, and they'll fall into the elevator and kill themselves. And before the Collector, I just reset my mutations. I didn't need Armadillo Pack for this fight, so I took Kill Rhythm Still, Soldier's Resistance Hill, and since I only had one health bot, I took Dead Inside. Now, Dead Inside is a really trash mutation. I don't know why they changed it. It was fine how it was. However, the only time you can use it now is on the Collector if you have one or less health pots. That's pretty much it, because the trade-off for the extra 50% HP it gives you is that it basically invalidates your health pots. You only get 30% healed from each one, which is just much worse than being able to use them to actually heal and not having that extra 50% HP, so I really don't like the Dead Inside change. I think it makes it kinda useless. But anyways, onto the Collector. Here's that 5BC lore for you. Now for the actual fight, just gonna pop both my skills immediately. And you can see that the symmetrical lance, because it has that 300% damage affix, is doing tons of damage. You don't really get to showcase it in the Astrolab, since by the point you reach that biome, everything hits really hard anyways. And another affix that's on there is that it breaks shields, because obviously you need that to like kill the king and everything. But I can actually hurt the Collector while he's healing using this weapon, so it's pretty good in that regard against the actual Collector himself. You can't kill him while he's healing just because it doesn't do enough damage against bosses, but it's still good. Like here, I don't know why I stopped hitting him, but right there, just one hit, you saw it. I hit him through his shield because of that affix. The tornadoes are pretty easy to dodge. That one just kind of caught me off guard as I was using a slow weapon, but all you gotta do is roll through them. Same thing for these. This fight is really all about just roll timing and not being greedy and attacking through the rolls. And right there again, I hit him as he was drinking with his shield. And I actually got the Panacea down while he had his shield up, which is really funny. So that affix makes you able to kind of cheese the collector fight using the 300% and break shield symmetrical lance if that drops on your second 5BC win. So yeah, not a bad collector. I got hit a couple times, but it didn't matter because I have both Soldier's Resistance and Dead Inside. So that'll do it for the run. Thank you guys a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.